So we're talking about the vocabulary in Unit 13. Let's talk about the verbs first. There's gignomai. We talked about this last night. The principal parts are gignomai, genesamai, egenomein, gegana, genesamai, egenomein, which is the aorist. One of the important things about that form is that the verb to be, which we haven't had yet, has no aorist, so egenomein functions as its aorist. Then there's a perfect gegana, and then there's a perfect middle, gegenemai. There is 5, but there's no 6, since it's a deponent verb. Gegenemai. So you've got all the forms are deponeted except for the perfect. Okay, you can see that you've got an alternation between the root gn, which is in the first principal part. Maybe you should write that over there next to it. The root there is gn. That's the one that's reduplicated. Then in the next two, you've got the root gen. Okay, and the aorist as well. It's gen. But in the perfect, the root is gon, G-O-N, right? So you've got the alternation between the O vowel and the root, the E vowel and the root, and the O vowel and the root, right? And you got the reduplication with an iota to mark the present of the form and the absence of reduplication in the aorist and the reduplication with an epsilon in the perfect.
Right.
But you have in the perfect middle is a distinctive form. So this word means to be born, to become, or to be. Especially in the aorist, it's a synonym of the verb to be, but often in other places. The next verb is erchamai, elausamai, elthon, and elutha, which means to come or to go. Okay, both. We separate those out. In Greek, you have to decide from the context which it is. It's another example of that. We talked about balo, that means to throw and to hit. Depends on where you are in relation to what's happening, whether it's coming or going up. Elthon with the circumflex over the eta.
And the perfect, sorry.
Smooth, yep. Yeah. And elelutha is the perfect, okay? It's an intransitive verb, so there's no aorist passive. You can't say become, right? Okay. All the last three principal parts there all come from the root eleuth, which you have in eleutheria. One of them has the E grade, eleuth. Elelutha has the 0 grade, and elthon was the same. It was from the root elutha, with the upsilon in the middle got syncopated out of it. So they all belong to the same stem, except for erchamai, which has come in as an outsider, as a new verb, which doesn't have any cognates in Indo-European either, whereas have some for the others. Okay, so then we've got manthano, a new verb of the type lambano that we talked about last week. Manthano means to learn or to understand. It's a mathesamai. The aorist is amathon. So there you can see that math is the root on which the present is built. We tend to think in regular verbs the present is the basis of the paradigm. In older verbs it was the aorist. I hope you're beginning to see that, and you built up things on top of the aorist. So math is the root, and manthano was built by adding the ano suffix and sticking an N or an M between the math, and so you have lab, lambano, math, manthano. We're going to have others. Lath, lanthano. We're going to get into more. Okay? I'm going to talk to you about lip and limpano, right? It's the aorist that becomes the basis of the present of these verbs. So that means learn or understand. We got the verb machamai. We have the noun mache, which means a battle. We have the verb machamai, which means to fight. And another deponent verb, machamai, machumai, machesamein, and machemai. Machumai is an epsilon contract, yep, future. Machesamein, a nice aorist, so it's not a passive deponent, and machemai is the perfective form. So it means to fight. And it governs the dative, the book tells us. And they give us, let's not write these two down. There are two compounds, one of didome and the other of histeme, with the preverb meta, and it says that it indicates, that, as a preverb, meta indicates sharing or change, okay? So sharing, you can think of, if you think of metamorphosis, with the morph part is shape, metamorphosis means change of shape, right? The other thing is to take part in. So we talked, I think, about the Greek word for participle, which is metoche, which means sharing in. So the och part is the root to have, which I don't know if we've had yet. But anyhow, it means taking part in or sharing. So it's a translation of the Latin. In Latin, when you translate that, you get particeps, which we get participle. And metanhistamai, which is a deponent verb, okay, not, in other words, it's the intransitive sense of histeme, means to migrate, okay, to get up from where you are and change your place. So that one's sharing. So metadidome means to share in, or give a share to, okay, and to share. And metanistamai, okay, the intransitive one, means to migrate, to change your place. So those are two verbs reflect the two possible functions of meta and preverbs as a preverb. Okay, the last verb in the lesson is felgo, which means to flee. Principal parts are felgo, felxomai, fugan, and pefelga has no, again, it's an intransitive verb like erchomai, so there are no passive forms. And the only tricky thing about it is that aside from meaning to flee, it means, or run away, it means to be a defendant in a lawsuit. Because we have this vestiges of the Latin principle about this in English. So you call a prosecutor is the person who is not the defendant, but the person who brings the lawsuit. And prosequor in Latin means to chase after someone. So the prosecutor in a Greek trial is hodiokon, the one who pursues, and the defendant is halfelgon, the one who flees.
Jeez.
So that's the metaphor. It's all right, kind of hairy when you think about lawsuits. But anyway, Greeks are into lawsuits big time, so you come across this vocabulary of halfelgon, the defendant, hodiokon, the prosecutor. All right, so let's look at some of the nouns and other words in this. There's archon, which means a magistrate in the Athenian city-state. It's just the participle of the verb archo, so it means a person in charge or ruler. But in Athens, it's translated archon, which is just transliteration of the word into Latinate English, archon. So it means he who rules, he who is in charge, or he holds a certain office. In Athens, there are a whole bunch of different ones. Depending on what you are and what your function is, you have a different title, but there are all kinds of archons. There's the word aspis, aspidos, a word for shield. It means the round shield, the kind that hoplites carry. There's heorte, a word that's translated festival, and it means a ritual festival, okay? And in particular, it means a banquet that's part of the festival, so it features a sacrifice and stuff like that. So these are words that are associated with the other word we had that's part of this vocabulary is thusia, okay? Thusia and heorte go together. Then we get this preposition epi. It's hard to define prepositions, and the book gives you some nice examples in the notes. This is on page 383. They're worth looking at. But with the genitive, it says it means on with the dative, on pertaining to or on condition that. That's actually quite common. Epi with the dative, that means on condition that. You can often even have epi plus the relative pronoun in the dative ho, just means on the condition that, f ho, okay? All by itself without any antecedent for the relative. And then you have epi with the accusative, which means on to, over, against, or for the purpose of something. And in composition, it tells you as a preverb, it means upon, over, against, after, and I'd add in response to. We often have pairs of a simple form of the verb, and epi means to do it in answer to what somebody else does, okay?
That's what's the accusative.
Yeah, but as a preverb, yeah.
I got you.
Yep. There's the word hetairos, hetairu, which it translates rather innocuously as companion. It also means political crony, okay? And then you can tell us, Belisi, what the feminine form means.
Oh, it means a courtesan or female companion.
Yes, so these are professionalized prostitutes in Greek city-states who have their own rituals and legal status and stuff like that. There's Euripides, the name of the tragic poet, who's not like Socrates, but like Stratiotes. Okay, so it's one of those first declension masculine names. So that Socratus is one type of noun name in ace, and Euripides is another. And you can't tell just by looking at the nominative which one they are. You have to know the genitive. In Greek, a lot more of them are of the Socrates type, the Socratus type, the S stems, than of the Euripides type. Get the noun kratos, kratus, another noun of the genos type that means strength or power. We got mechane, which means a gadget, a device. We get the word machine from it by way of the Latin borrowing of it, of the Greek word into Latin. We have this is a really old word for sword, xiphos, xiphus, ta. Okay, you have that word in Linear B in the oldest Greek that we have. It's not the standard word for sword, which is there's homoios, homoion, like, an adjective that governs a dative. So you want to say somebody's like something, you do homoios in the proper gender numbering case and a dative to go with it. That's one way of doing it. Let's see, here's another word, paidos, which is really the standard word for child in Greek. It can be either of masculine or feminine gender. So it's another one of these tricky nouns, like theos. You have to translate it as boy or girl, okay, depending on whether its gender is masculine or feminine. So you got to be careful. But the inflections are the same. Let's see, there's the noun pouspados, foot, from which you get podiatrist and stuff like that. There's the adjective saphes, like alethes, alethes, that means clear. Summachos, okay, so this is a compound of sun and the root mach, and to get an adjective meaning fighting along with someone else. So therefore it becomes a noun that means an ally. Okay. Techus is a word for a city wall, a fortified wall, not just a
house wall.
Not a house wall, right, but a real strong wall. There's the word topos, tapu, that means placed, and we have in topography. There's the word trapaio, a neuter noun of the second declension, from which the English word trophy comes. And that book tells you it means a trophy or a victory monument. What happened in Greek battles was when you defeated the other side, they turned around and ran away. So tropaion means the place at which the enemy turned, and you made a mound of dirt and stuff that the people had left behind as a sign that you beat them. Greeks are into defeating other people and winning. Okay, big time. Chalapos, chalape, chalapon, an adjective that means harsh or difficult or cruel, it can mean as well. And lastly, there's the word for hand, cheros, a monosyllabic noun of the third declension. Remember these? Nux, nuktos, in which in the genitive and the dative, the accent's on the last syllable. So it's cheros, cheri, and then chera, or chera with an accent on the first syllable. Right? I think that's it.